Hello and welcome. You're watching Head to Head, and I'm Vivica Williams. At the end of May, the Syrian government recognized the independence of two currently occupied regions in Georgia, Abkhazia and South Ossetia. International observers have deemed this move a gesture of thanks to Assad's largest patron, Russia. The international response was quite predictable, with most countries condemning the decision as a violation of international law. To provide an analysis of this situation, we're joined in the studio today by Yevhen Yaroshenko, a senior analyst at the Democracy House. Hello, thank you for being with us.
Hello, thank you for inviting.
So tell us about this decision, and from what I would think, this isn't something that would be unexpected, but what makes this decision and this timing quite unusual?
Really interesting question, because Syrian government 10 years ago supported Russia's actions, but like the overwhelming majority of other UN member states, Syria decided not to recognize either South Ossetia or Abkhazia. But why Syrian government made such a controversial decision right now? It can be explained by two things. First, now Syrian regime headed by Bashar al-Assad gained military supremacy in the country, and the recognition of both two self-proclaimed republics can be as a sign of gratitude for Russia, because but for Russian military assistance, it's arguable whether Bashar al-Assad could physically survive, as well as his political regime. Another explanation is that by recognizing self-proclaimed republics, it's a signal to Iran that Russia, but not Iran, can be considered as Syria's primary foreign backer, because though Moscow and Tehran have joint interest in supporting the survival of Bashar al-Assad, they have some divergent regional interests. And sometimes they even compete on other regional matters.
Right, so let's first talk about the first point with this recognition of the two republics. Do you see this as maybe the most obvious sign of what Syria has agreed to? Are there other things that Syria is perhaps giving Russia or will be helping Russia with in gratitude? And this may be just the one that the most visual.
Well, yes, it's a very visible indicator that Russia tries to solidify its ties with Syria, and Russia may as well try to solidify its military presence in the Eastern Mediterranean and Black Sea region. Well, and fostering diplomatic relations between Syria and two self-proclaimed republics can be regarded as an attempt of Russia to create its own military alliance. Well, but for Syria, it was very controversial issues, and many analysts, even the majority of analysts, they mostly ruled out such scenario, because Syria is vulnerable in terms of its territorial integrity. First, it tries to deal with Syrian Kurds, who try, if not to establish their own country within 4 countries, but at least to establish some federal unit. Another subject for concern to Syria is the dispute with Israel regarding the Golan Heights. By making such decision, Syria challenges the very rules of the very international rules, because a country who tries to restore its territorial integrity challenges the one of other UN member state.
Right. Well, that makes sense because if the Kurds are looking to create their own federation, or this seems that it could be an indication or taken as an indication if you recognize these regions as independent, then that's maybe perhaps a go-ahead for Kurds to create their own independent state within Syria. And that could look very hypocritical without recognizing this within. But it is obvious, or it seems obvious, that before the interaction of Russia into Syria, that the Syrian government was looking very fragile. But so after this help from Russia, we're seeing how does the rest of the world see this decision from a different perspective when we're looking at the world's view?
Well, the overwhelming majority of countries support Georgia's territorial integrity, though they may have a rather friendly attitude towards Russia's actions back in 2008. But many countries are very vulnerable in terms of some separatist movements. That's why there is a consensus regarding territorial integrity of many countries that have either strong separatist movements or have some territories beyond the government control. Syria becomes the fifth UN member state to recognize two Georgian breakaway territories. So, and the majority of other countries, they realize that it will have very, very little wider international impact because the future of these two breakaway territories are fully dependent on one UN member state, namely Russia.
Mm-hmm. And if we talk on the other point you brought up with Russia's stake in the Middle East. So Syria was Russia's biggest partner there, in a sense, their biggest military recipient, and now with their solidifying their stance there with their help for Syria. So what are some of your ideas about what we could expect or what could possibly grow from this backing, this more solidified connection between Russia and Syria?
Russia relies not solely on the Syrian government, but Russia tries to be both a spoiler and the partners of the United States and regional powers such as Iran, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, because the Syrian civil war, if it can be called Syrian civil war, provided an opportunity for Russia to expand its regional role in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And Russia will try to play a role of a broker between Syria and Israel, between Iran and Israel, and will try to support both parties given a very lack of trust in the region and even the lack of direct relations. And being a broker means that Russia hopes to receive some political dividends and also to weaken the United States after the Syrian crisis, after US invasion of Iraq and other controversial decisions that resulted in growing mistrust to the West in the region.
And what do you see their chances of being successful?
We should take into account that sometimes interests between Russia and many other regional powers, they diverge. Because there are too many security threats, and Russia and, for example, Iran can cooperate on Syria, but they can disagree on issues such as what to do with Kurds, what to do with regarding the position of Israel, what to do around other regional crises. So it's in order to be successful, each country has to strike a very delicate balance. And Russia is rather a newcomer in the Middle East, because before Syrian civil war, Russia was the single military and political partner in the region.
Right. And so what type of relationship does Russia have with Israel? As we know, the U.S. is one of the biggest supporters and protectors of Israel in the region. So by bringing in Russia as possibly a stronger opposing force, what do you see the implications for this relationship between Israel and the Middle East, as in their power and their protection?
Of course, the United States remain a principal foreign backer of Israel, and especially when Donald Trump entered the White House, this support became even more visible, given the controversial decision on Jerusalem and other steps. But at the same time, Israel tries to forge ties with Russia, because Israel wants that Russia's and Iranian allies could be more predictable, and Israel wants that Russia could help to ensure that exterior Israeli borders are secure enough so that there will be no Iranian military present along the Golan Heights and southern Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. And of course, as we know with Russia, this may very well or most likely will come along with a lot of political guarantees or some requirements in exchange for really pushing their influence. And if we look back, I guess to take this then to the implications for Ukraine when we're looking at the eastern Ukraine and the occupied territories there. What type of, are there some type of precedents or some type of parallels we can see between the situation with Syria and Abkhazia and Ossetia and some implications for the occupied territories here in Ukraine?
Yeah, there are some resemblances, but the key difference is that though Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics proclaimed independence, they were not recognized by Russia or any other countries. And unlike Abkhazia and South Ossetia, which are recognized as occupied territories not only by Georgia, but by other countries, because Russia does not deny its military presence, and by Russia having recognized their independence, solidified the arguments both of Georgia and the West that Russia maintains political control over these territories. When it comes to part of eastern Ukraine, the situation is different. So the international community, instead of Russian military occupation, prefers to use the notion of effective control, which means that Russia officially is not there, but Russia's military, political, financial, logistical support is crucial for self-proclaimed entities in eastern Ukraine.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for giving us some insight into what this decision means with this recognition of the two republics in Georgia, as well as what this also shows us with Ukraine as well.
Thank you.
And that was Yevhen Yaroshenko, a senior analyst at the Democracy House. Thank you very much for watching Head to Head, and stay tuned with UATV for more great programming.